Welcome to your Thursday evening stroll around your celestial neighborhood. I'm Irene Pease, your friendly neighborhood astronomer, and I'm really excited for tonight, as usual. We're going to be looking at the Great Conjunction of 2020. So, we have a couple of planets that have been steadily getting closer and closer together in our sky, and not next week, but a few days after next week there's going to be like kind of a big deal. Like this doesn't happen every year. This doesn't happen every century even. So I wanted to share a little bit about that. You've probably heard some about it in the news, and I just want to kind of delve into it a little bit here, show some visuals, and kind of take a look, maybe a slightly different look at it than some other things you may have seen already. Also, talk about what to expect to see it, and maybe some places where you can go and see it online or otherwise. So tonight, as usual, I'll be using Stellarium, which we'll get to in a moment, as well as Open Space, which you see in the background right now. Open Space, it's like our big, like flying around the universe in 3D, super fun thing to do in all your spare time. And Stellarium, which I also love using in the field, like I take it with me on my phone. Open Space has boatloads of real data. And so that does not fit on my phone, but it fits in the cloud / my iMac. So that works. So you can download both of those at either of their respective websites, which you can see there. So we'll see a bit more of Open Space in a little bit. But now let's go ahead and hop over to some Stellarium. So Stellarium, as usual, we are looking at now. Thanks, Spaceballs, for that. And we're in Brooklyn. It's dark, as you can see. Pretty dark out there. But if I look over towards the west, wait, I think I'm in Brooklyn. I should be in Brooklyn. Oh, yeah, I'm definitely in Brooklyn. I can't believe they've already set. They set like the sun sets so early. Just this whole like solstice thing throws me off every year, I swear. So I'm gonna actually rewind a couple hours. There they are, popping above the horizon. It's not actually this dark in Brooklyn unless there's like a blackout. But just pretending this is Brooklyn. So we'll go back a few hours to kind of twilightiness. There's Mount Prospect over there in the south, and we see Jupiter and Saturn up here. So, what are you looking for in the sky this week? Well, the planets. Okay, so obviously Jupiter and Saturn. Every week I'm like, oh, look, they're getting closer together. And just in our sky, not in space. We'll see the 3D view in a little bit. But they're getting closer and closer. And so, again, the big date for that is December 21st, which is also the solstice. And read into that what you will. More on that in a bit. Some other things more immediate, even before the 21st, right? So that's still over a week away. We still have 8 days of 8 nights, I guess, of Hanukkah. See if your toilet paper lasts, see if your candles and oil last, all the good things. Welcome to 2020. So let's take a look. Where am I? My head is spinning. And the things that you want to see possibly tonight, if you are in a dark location in a northern part of the earth, like above 35, 40 degrees. Something you might want to look for are aurora. So there's a big solar storm that went out, big coronal mass ejection, which is just as exciting as it sounds. Basically, the sun burped out a bunch of like charged particles headed our way, and nothing personal against Earth, just, out into the solar system. But as that mess washes over us, it's going to interact with our Earth's magnetic field and can kind of those particles are going to kind of get accelerated through the upper atmosphere where the magnetic field is strongest. Those are going to be near the magnetic poles, which tend to be in the north. And when we have that happen, it kind of excites the gases in our atmosphere and they turn pretty colors. So normally we'd say the sky is like blue or maybe, clear due to scattering or whatever. It's a gas. But if you've ever seen like those gas tube things that your chemistry teacher did, think way back to last time you took chemistry. We have different types of gases in our upper atmosphere, and they will turn different pretty colors when they are excited by these super exciting particles that were flung off from the sun. So that's supposed to be happening tonight. It's actually clear in the New York City area, but try to get out of the city, go north if you can to somewhere darker where it looks more like this and less like Times Square. look up. I'm not sure if you're supposed to look towards the horizon, but it's going to be up. Don't need a telescope, don't need binoculars. I would say a chair and something really warm. I'm bringing lots of layers and coffee. Peaking tonight, I think the projection was at 10 to midnight-ish. So good luck with that. That's the most immediate thing. So jump in your cars right after this. Or if you want to leave it on your phone while you jump in your car, start driving north, that's great too. I'll understand. The other thing that you want to be on the lookout for this next week, really through the weekend, and weather in the New York City area is pretty lousy for it, but maybe you're not in the New York City area, good for you, and you'll be able to see the Geminid meteor shower. So I think I mentioned this last week. The Geminids are one of the best meteor showers, really, of the whole year. And this year, they're really a star. Really, really great meteor shower for this year. The Perseids are pretty popular every year because they're kind of a nice warm season. But the Geminids can be a lot better. This year, the Perseids were near a full moon, so we didn't have as dark of a sky, so you don't have as much of the contrast, and you just can't see the meteors as well. This year, we have a really good moon phase for the Geminids. So I want to talk a little bit about those. To see Geminids, to see any meteor shower, again, you want to go outside and look up. Don't look through a telescope. Don't even look through binoculars. It's harder to see them. You're looking at a smaller field of view if you're looking through any of those instruments. Just go outside and look up. Wear something warm because you're just going to be sitting there. It's not like you're skiing or shoveling snow. It's a very sedentary activity. But if you look up, you will see them all over the sky. You don't have to just look near Gemini, but I'm still going to talk about where Gemini is. You can see them all over. And some of these are going to be much brighter and more colorful because, again, the Geminids are created by debris, not from a comet like most of the major meteor showers, but the Geminids are created from debris, all that space junk that Brian Levine talked about several weeks back now. Space debris from an asteroid. So rockier bits, those are going to be more colorful, more fun when they go streaking through our atmosphere. So if you see a meteor going like this down here, probably not a Geminid. So you can tell it's a Geminid if it seems to be radiating out from this point in the constellation Gemini. So it could be way over here on this side of the sky. It could be way over here on this side of the sky, or it might actually be close to the constellation Gemini. Doesn't have to be super close, but it just has to appear as if it had come from this part of the sky. So if you're out there all bundled up, waiting to see some meteors, and you want to try to actually find the constellation, I'm just going to fast forward this to about 10 o'clock at night and maybe turn off a few of these blobs so I can see a little bit better. A lot of people are familiar with the constellation Orion. So Orion is up there. There's the 3 stars in the belt. And then kind of north of the belt is a kind of orangish star, Betelgeuse. It was all the rage last year because it was like changing brightness. Down below the belt, we have the kind of blue-white star Rigel. So they're pretty bright. So if you follow from Rigel through the belt past Betelgeuse and go about twice that distance in the sky, you come to this kind of pair of stars that look fairly similar in brightness. It's almost like they're twinsies, and those are the heads of the twinsies Gemini. So Pollux and Castor, and then the radiant for the Geminid meteor shower is like, it's like the phantom triplet, or I don't know, something creepy shining like shiny rocks on the twins. I don't know. Anyway, so the radiant is over there near those 2 twin stars, Castor and Pollux, which it's still not labeling Castor, but yeah, okay. Pollux, Castor, Geminid's radiant. Okay, so that'll be a fun thing. That's your challenge for the week. Try to find Castor and Pollux in the sky, and if you can get out, if the weather's decent, the peak should be Sunday, Monday night for the Geminids, but go out any night this week that it's actually clear wherever you are. Again, New York's not looking so great except for tonight. And see if you can see some meteors. It'll be cool out, but it could be worth it. So that's our kind of what's up in the sky. back to the planets, the main thing. The planets are basically having a meeting. um, so there's actually this really fabulous series on TikTok by Keats Did It, Keats. Keats Did It, TikTok, Planets Having a Meeting. Check it out. It's one of my favorite things. Um, and unfortunately, fortunately, there's Merc. Unfortunately, I think it all sold out like in a day. And fortunately for me, not so much for you, but I got my Saturn sweatshirt. So I'm super excited to wear that for the conjunction. I'm actually wearing it now. It's awesome. so, uh, so enough about me. How about those planets? All right. So let's rewind a little bit and see just what's going on. All right. So we've talked about how these planets are getting closer and closer together in the sky. What's the big deal? Well, the big deal is they don't normally appear nearly that close together in the sky. So how close are they going to get? Well, over the course of about half a week, they're going to be closer together than the diameter of a full moon. So you could fit a full moon over both of them. That's pretty close. That means you can see both of them in a telescope at the same time. And that means there's going to be a whole bunch of really cool images taken of these with the two in a telescope at the same time with all their moons like mishmash together. So we kind of zoom in here. So this is the 17th, and then let's see, Friday is the 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st. That's the closest they're going to be from here. So if we zoom in, I'll actually move forward in time just a little bit. And you can see, because we are basically on the solstice, the sun is setting pretty early. Let me go ahead and pause time so we're not like all the wavering atmosphere here. So it's not even 4:30, but by about 4:30-ish, it's plenty dark to see them in the sky with a naked eye. Plenty dark. And if you can see them in a telescope, they'll look like this. What? Oh my goodness. So let's get rid of all the fun facts about Jupiter. So we have Jupiter. We have 4 of Jupiter's moons. Jupiter's largest moon, that's just a star, ignore that. And then we have Saturn and some of Saturn's largest moons. So usually in smaller telescopes, you might be able to see Titan, but up to 5 of Saturn's moons, depending on the magnification of the telescope, or sorry, depending on the aperture, the size of the telescope and its light gathering capacity. This is what you could see. You could see something like this. So where do you want to go to see that? Well, anywhere. Look up. If you have binoculars, you can see them both in a binocular view. And there will be some viewing around New York City. You can check that out on the more on that later, but just the end from the beginning, you can check that out on the AAA website, aaa.org. So that's the Amateur Astronomers Association, not the car place. If you go to aa.com, you'll be like, what's up with the cars? I wanted planets. So make sure you go to aa.org if you want to see planet conjunctions. They have a bunch of events that I'll talk about in a little bit. So I wanted to say, like, when were like some other conjunctions, right? Like, how often does this really happen? So kind of zooming in, and just for some comparison, I'm going to make sure I get the same field of view each time. So trying to get around 0.5, 0.5 degrees for our field of view. And you can see just how close they are. So like Jupiter's more distant moon, Callisto, is about the same distance in the sky as Saturn is, just a little bit closer. So if we stretched out Jupiter's moons along this axis, it would almost be like running into Saturn, which is just super cool. So that's very, very close. The last time they were not quite this close. Just a couple of dates. Pretty close in 1961, 1742, not nearly as close as this. 1682, and then almost 80 years before that, 1623. That's the main date that a lot of people are talking about. But let's just check out I want to check out the 1682. That was October 25th. I think I can just 1682 October, other way, October 25th. So not nearly as close back then. And really what I'm going to do, and I'm going to cheat. I'm going to cheat a lot. I'm going to turn off the atmosphere. So hold your breath. And I'm going to turn off the ground just so it'll be easier to find these. So if we look over here, that was happening over near the constellation Leo. So kind of, between Leo and Cancer. So hang on to Cancer, right? Just remember that because we'll come back to it. So if we zoom in there to our 5 degrees or 0.5 degrees, big difference. There we are, about 0.5 degrees. All right. So a lot further apart back in 1682 than they will be later this month. But then the other date that a lot of people are talking about, the main one where they were like really, really close again, was the 1623. So if we go back to 23, and that was July. So it was like the height of summer or something. So go back to July 17. Take a look at the sky back then. Stellarium, so fun to do this. So zoom out, find me a Jupiter. Pretty sure that's a Jupiter. So Jupiter and Saturn, again, stacked right on top of each other. And if we zoom in to the same field of view that we saw earlier, let's see. Oh, wow. So yeah, so this is our field of view from earlier. So they're, yeah, just as close, just a little bit closer even between Jupiter and Saturn. So some people are saying they were too close to the sun back then, and so people couldn't have really seen it in the night sky. And that, like, really before that, it would have been like 1226. But notice, hey, we're in that same constellation, Cancer. So we had some Cancer conjunctions. Interesting. And where are the planets now again? Someone remind me. This is like teacher Irene. So if I go back to today's date, the planets are in not Cancer, but they're close to Capricorn. And the next time that they'll be this close, if I live to be 100, it's going to be right around Pi Day, which for those of you who aren't huge math fans, 3/14, March 14. So Pi Day 2080 is kind of the next close conjunction like this. Center in there. And it happens to be occurring in, oh, look, it's the same constellation, Capricornus. Coincidence? I think not. So we have these two constellations in which these conjunctions are happening. They're happening in Capricornus. So this is the next one. So all you kitties out there, eat your veggies. It'll look really awesome if you can see 2 in one lifetime. Amazing. So these are happening in Capricornus and they're happening in Cancer. Why would that be? Like, what's up with that? So for that, I want to jump on over to open space where we can see kind of like what's happening like in 3D. So open space, here we come. Just like that, like a magic click. All right, so obviously that's not Jupiter or Saturn, that's the Earth. But in the background, you might be able to see 2 thin lines, and I'm going to try to extend them a bit so you can see them a little bit more. Actually, first, scratch that other line. I'm going to zoom out. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Not that zoom, this kind of zoom. And here we see kind of the plane of the solar system. Right, so these are the orbits of the planet. So real data, the orbits of the planets don't actually appear as lines in space, right? So that's a visualization to help us kind of track things. But all the stars and the positions of the planets and everything that you're seeing, that's all real data, like based on like calculations and surveys and whatnot. So we see that the planets all kind of orbit the sun in a plane, right? So the orbits basically lie along this nice tidy line. We call that line the ecliptic. And it looks like just one line in our sky. Since we're in that plane, it looks like a line. It's basically the plane of the solar system as seen from Earth. All right. So these are all the orbits of the planets that we're not talking about tonight. Those are the orbits of the planets we are talking about. So there we have the orbits of Jupiter, closer into the sun, and Saturn, further out. And you can see already that they kind of line up. Wow, neat. So one thing I want to do, I want to go ahead and extend their orbits a little bit just to make them a little easier for us to track. So there's Jupiter almost all the way around, and we'll do Saturn's orbit trail. Send that almost all the way around as close as we can get. All right. So now if I kind of zoom back into Earth, I'd have to turn the Earth off just to be able to see this a little better. There's Earth. Hello, Earth. Don't really want to look at the Earth. So again, one of the fun things we can do is just turn off the Earth. Don't need it for now. Everyone, again, hold your breath. There goes Earth's atmosphere and the Earth. Okay. So from Earth, if we look at the orbits, the paths across our sky of those two planets, we can see, yeah, they're pretty close together, like all of them. And, but at 2 points, they have to cross, right? Unless like one circle was like completely above the other one, at some point they have to cross. And we can see which constellations they're on, and which constellations they appear to cross. And you can probably guess, guessing, educated guess, right? The ones I've been talking about. So look, oh gee, there they seem to cross. And what constellation is that? Hey, look, it's Cancer. So that's one of the locations that the planets can get super, super close together. So if they were to cross like somewhere over here, like in Leo, even if they were at like these like kind of corresponding points in their orbits, they're not going to be like super close, like we're going to see them this month, right? But if they cross over here in Cancer, and actually really cool thing about the Cancer crossing, which we don't have this year, but you know, wait a few centuries, is they cross near a neat little deep sky object. And we're going to try and zoom into that just a smidge. So you observers out there might know what I'm talking about. You might even be able to see a little bit of a smudge there, kind of on the back of the crab. So we zoom in there and see what's near that kind of crossing point. Oh, it's a little clump of stars. Pretty, right? So here's kind of where they're crossing. And then nearby is this cluster, that's the beehive cluster, Persepi, aka. So that's kind of a fun conjunction. If you get to see a conjunction in Cancer, which no one alive today will, but you know, just saying, that would be really cool. So there's our crossing in Cancer, and you can probably guess the constellation, the other constellation where those two lines cross. Yeah, that's right. That's where they are right now as I'm speaking, rambling on. They're going to also cross over in Capricornus, right? So we can even see kind of that last crossing point, kind of zoom in here and see. Yeah. So it's not just every time that Jupiter laps Saturn going around the sky, because Jupiter makes a full orbit around the sun every 12 years. Saturn makes a full orbit around the sun every 29-ish years. So you could say, well, I'm just going to multiply 12 and 29 and get, what is that, 360? But actually it's off by a few days. So it's more maybe like 358. But then is it going to be in exactly the same point? No, not exactly. It's going to shift a little bit, right? Because it's not exact years. So it's going to shift a little bit. But when it's shifted to either this point or the point over in Cancer, that's when we get these awesome conjunctions. So not something you can see every 12 years, not something you can even see every 29 years. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but pretty cool. So kind of a big deal. Again, the next one won't be for another 60-ish years, so 2080. And then after that, it's like, yeah, 2139. And actually 2139 to 2140. 2139, they're actually going to have Venus next to them. So let's maybe just pop back over to Stellarium and see that one. And then we'll take a look at just exactly what we might be seeing later this month. So back in Stellarium, I'm just going to set my clock to, what did I say, 21 something? Yeah, 21. We'll go to 2139. And we want to go kind of late in the year. It's actually Christmas Eve. And I'm just kind of ignoring the sun. So if we go to Christmas Eve 2139 and all its glory, we actually have a kind of merry little band. You can see up here. Whoa. Let's go ahead and see how this might look. We can actually see how it would look from Brooklyn. Sorry, I think open space is taking all my computing power. I'm lagging a little bit here. But yeah, so if we're able to see this early enough in the evening on Christmas Eve, looking towards the southwest. Oh, look what constellation that's in. Capricornus again. Yeah. So and if we go to Christmas Eve, we also have the moon over there, right? So we have the moon zipping by, we have Jupiter and Saturn, and then a few months later, Jupiter and Saturn actually get really, really close. And it's actually in early 2040. So yeah, about a month later, the conjunction would occur for just Jupiter and Saturn. But that'll be a really pretty view. So I don't know. I don't think veggies are going to cut it. You might have to do like some, cryo thing to freeze yourself and make it to that conjunction. So not something that happens all the time. Jupiter and Saturn are going to be the rarest conjunction that we can see with the naked eye. If you think about the other planets that are going around the sun much more quickly, those are going to run into each other or appear near each other in the sky much more often than the outer planets. Again, because the outer planets, they have such long periods. It takes them quite a while to cycle through that. And again, to get the closest conjunctions, that cycle needs to be kind of repeating itself in specific parts of the sky. So again, if you want to see the conjunction, all you have to do is look up in the sky and just know that you're looking at two things instead of one thing on the night of the 21st. If you want to maybe try looking through binoculars, just make sure you hold them really steady and you can see the moons of Jupiter through binoculars. Depending on the power of your binoculars, you may or may not be able to make out the rings of Saturn in the binoculars. And if you want to look through a telescope, find yourself a telescope. Check out the AAA.org website for the free events happening through them. So the AAA, the Amateur Astronomers Association in New York, is actually going to be holding multiple live streams, and stay tuned for any details about public events. To be very careful about COVID, trying to do stargazing with the public during a pandemic is, wrought with complications. So we're not heavily advertising those public events, but if you're really curious, check the website. Those will be posted. And then if you want to see a view through a telescope but don't want to go out, if you want to stay in your home where it's safe and you're not going to, spread or catch any pandemic viruses, great. We will be streaming. So AAA will be streaming. We'll have 5 nights of streaming, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And of course, that's all weather dependent. If it's cloudy, you know what? We can't see through clouds. That's not a thing. So just trying to zoom in here a bit more. It's not quite coming in. There we go. So it looks like we may or may not have the red spot. Unfortunately, if you watch all night, you can see the red spot, but their setting, as you can tell, it sets pretty quickly after the sun or within a few hours. So probably the best time to view is right away, setting up at 4, viewing from 4:30 to 5:30. That's kind of what we're aiming for with the AAA live stream. but you should be able to see again the moons and not seeing a red spot. Again, Stellarium's pretty good about telling you whether or not the red spot is out. Actually, just kidding. There it is. There's a red spot. So if you're out there right at 4:30, you might be able to catch the red spot. If you're out later, it may have already rotated out of view. So vote early and often. I mean, go look at the planets early and often and enjoy that. We'll be back next week for some unknown topic. If you want to know if anything exciting like this is on the horizons for 2021, I'm really excited to have my friend and cohort from the Hayden shows that I used to do when we used to do live shows in Hayden. But Ted Williams and I are still going to tell you all about the excitement in the skies for 2021. So that's coming up later this month. Mission of the month is on Christmas Eve. I'll let you guess what that's going to be all about. And in the meantime, go see some aurora if you can, go see some meteors if you can, and keep tracking those planets. We'll be back next week to double, triple check that you're all ready for that. So, with that, just want to shout out again, awesome visuals from Stellarium and Open Space. I couldn't do what I do without them. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, I'm Irene Pease, your friendly neighborhood astronomer, and I'm glad that you were able to stop by and join me for a little stroll around our celestial neighborhood. Just want to wish everyone clear skies, be safe out there, and wear a mask.